Ambassador Jiho Kim sat in the Grand Council chamber and watched the other delegates argue. The room was massive, built to hold representatives from 47 different alien species. Each species had their own section with seats designed for their unique bodies. Some sat on chairs like humans did, others floated in special gravity fields. A few hung from the ceiling. Jiho had been coming to this chamber for 15 years. He knew every corner of it. He knew which delegates would speak loudly and which ones stayed quiet. He knew the patterns of every debate. Today felt like every other day, but it was not. The council was discussing a crisis on the border worlds. 3 planets needed medical supplies and food. Thousands of people were sick. Children were dying. Jiho raised his hand to speak. "We can help," Jiho said. His voice was calm and professional. "Humanity has medical ships ready to go. We have the supplies these planets need. Our doctors can be there in 2 days." Council Prime Vexthar looked at Jiho with cold eyes. Vexthar was a Velkari, one of the oldest species in the council. His people had been exploring space when humans were still living in caves. He never let anyone forget this fact. "Thank you, Ambassador Kim," Vexthar said. His tone made it clear he was not actually thankful. "But I think the more experienced species should handle this situation. Humans are still quite new to galactic affairs. Perhaps you should observe how we do things properly." Several other delegates nodded in agreement. Jiho had seen this happen 100 times before. Human ideas were ignored. Human help was dismissed. It did not matter that human medicine was the best in the galaxy. It did not matter that human ships were the fastest. The older species always thought they knew better. Jiho sat down and said nothing more. He placed his hands flat on the desk in front of him and waited for the session to end. Inside his jacket pocket, a small device vibrated twice. The message had arrived. After the session ended, Jiho walked back to his private office. The halls of the council station were beautiful. Light came through windows that showed the stars outside. Plants from 100 different worlds grew in gardens along the walkways. Everything was peaceful and orderly. In his office, Jiho locked the door and opened the encrypted message. It was from Earth's High Command. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Then he sat down in his chair and looked out the window for a long time. The decision was final. Humanity was leaving the Galactic Council, not with anger, not with threats. They were simply walking away. After 150 years of being treated like children, Earth had decided enough was enough. Jiho understood why. He had spent 15 years being talked down to. 15 years of watching human achievements get stolen by other species. 15 years of seeing human scientists passed over for promotions, while less qualified aliens got the jobs. He was tired. All the humans in the council were tired. The message gave him clear instructions. Over the next 3 weeks, every human in council space would quietly leave. They would take all their equipment. They would delete all their research from council databases. They would remove every trace of human contribution that they legally could. And they would do it so smoothly that no one would notice until it was done. Jiho started immediately. He opened his computer and began copying files. These were reports that humans had written, research that human scientists had done, ideas that human engineers had developed. All of it was being saved and removed from council systems. Across the station, other humans were doing the same thing. Captain Minji Park, who commanded the human defense fleet, received her orders at the same time. She called her ship commanders and gave them new patrol routes. These routes would slowly move all human ships away from council space. To anyone watching, it would look normal, just routine military movements. Dr. Hyunlee worked in the council's largest hospital. She had saved thousands of lives over her career. Aliens from dozens of species owed their lives to her skill. When she got the message, she was in the middle of surgery. She finished the operation perfectly, as she always did. Then she went to her office and started making plans. Her patients would need new doctors. The hospital equipment that humans had designed would need to be replaced or taught to other species. She began training sessions with alien doctors, showing them everything they needed to know. She told them it was just standard procedure. No one suspected anything. Engineer Do-Hyun Choi had built most of the council's dimensional gate network. These gates allowed ships to travel between star systems instantly. Without them, traveling across the galaxy would take years instead of days. The gates were his life's work, and he was proud of them. Now he had to take them apart in a way. He could not destroy council property. That would be illegal and wrong. But he could remove the human technology that made the gates work so well. He could install safety locks that only humans knew how to remove. He called it a security update. The council approved it without asking questions. 3 weeks passed. Every day a few more humans left the station. They said they were going on vacation or returning home for family visits. No one noticed the pattern. Why would they? Humans came and went all the time. Jiho attended every council session during those 3 weeks. He voted on proposals. He gave short speeches. He acted exactly as he always had. But every night he packed a few more personal items from his office. His books went into boxes. His awards got wrapped carefully. His family photos were already in his bag. On the last day, there was a council session about trade routes. It was boring and technical. Vexthar was explaining something about tariffs. Halfway through his speech, he made a joke about human merchants being too simple to understand complex trade laws. A few delegates laughed. Jiho smiled politely and said nothing. He had heard worse over the years. This did not hurt him anymore. He just felt sorry for them. They had no idea what was coming. When the session ended, Jiho stood up and gathered his papers. He looked around the chamber one final time. This room had been his workplace for 15 years. He had fought so many battles here. He had won some and lost many more. Now he was leaving it behind. He walked out through the main doors. His footsteps echoed on the stone floor. No one called after him. No one said goodbye. He reached the main corridor and turned toward the docking bay where his ship waited. Other humans were already there. Captain Minji was checking her ship's systems. Dr. Hyun was saying a quiet goodbye to an alien nurse who had worked with her. Doyun was reviewing his final reports. They all looked at Jiho when he arrived. "Is it done?" Minji asked. "It is done," Jiho replied. "Everything is removed. All our people are accounted for. We can leave." They boarded their ships, engines powered up. One by one, the human vessels left the council station. They did not rush. They followed all the proper departure procedures. They filed their flight plans correctly. Everything was done by the book. As Jiho's ship pulled away from the station, he looked back through the window. The massive structure hung in space, lit up like a small sun. It looked beautiful and important. It looked like it would last forever. He knew better. The council station was built on a foundation of human work. Human technology kept its systems running. Human soldiers kept its borders safe. Human doctors kept its people healthy. Human engineers maintained its infrastructure. And now all of that was leaving. The station grew smaller in the window as the ship accelerated. Soon it was just a point of light among the stars. Then it was gone. "Set course for Earth," Jiho said to the pilot. "We are going home." Behind them in the council chamber, Vexthar was probably still talking about trade tariffs. He had no idea that the humans were gone. He had no idea what that meant. Soon he would learn. They all would learn. But that was not humanity's problem anymore. Vexthar was reading morning reports when his assistant rushed into the office. The young Velkari looked worried, which was unusual. Velkari did not usually show emotion in public. "Council Prime," the assistant said, breathing hard. "The humans are gone." Vexthar looked up from his screen. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "All of them," the assistant explained. "Every human on the station has left. Their offices are empty. Their quarters are cleared out. Their ships departed during the night. There is not a single human anywhere in council space." Vexthar stood up and walked to his window. Below him, the station continued its normal operations. Ships came and went. People walked through the corridors. "Everything looked fine. When did they leave?" he asked. "We are not sure. It seems they have been leaving slowly over the past 3 weeks. We only noticed this morning when all their positions came up empty." Vexthar waved his hand dismissively. "They are throwing a tantrum. Humans are young and emotional. They will come back when they calm down." But inside, Vexthar felt a small worry growing. He pushed it away. The council had existed for thousands of years before humans joined. They would be fine without them. The first problem appeared 2 days later. The council hospital sent an urgent message. Several patients had died overnight. The alien doctors could not operate the medical equipment properly. The machines were designed by humans, and the other species did not understand all the controls. Dr. Hyun had tried to teach them, but 3 weeks was not enough time. The equipment was complex. It took years of training to master. Now people were dying because no one knew how to use the machines correctly. More problems followed quickly. The dimensional gate network started having errors. Small ones at first. A gate would shut down for a few minutes, then restart. Ships would be delayed. Nothing serious yet, but the engineers were concerned. A young Velkari engineer named Kova was assigned to investigate. Kova was brilliant and had studied human engineering for years. They respected human innovation, even if other Velkari did not. Kova spent 3 days analyzing the gate system. What they found was shocking. Every major improvement to the gates in the last 50 years came from human engineers. The current system was built on human designs. Without humans to maintain it, problems would only get worse. Kova brought their findings to Vexthar. Council Prime, we have a serious problem. The gate network depends on human technology. We need them back to fix it. Vexthar did not look concerned. Nonsense. We built gates before humans arrived. Our own engineers can handle any issues. But Council Prime, Kova tried to explain. The current system is completely different from the old designs. Humans changed everything. They made it faster and more efficient. If we try to fix it without understanding their work, we might break it completely. Then figure it out, Vexthar said. You are an engineer. Do your job. Kova left the office feeling frustrated and scared. They knew they could not fix this alone. No one could except the humans who designed it. Trade problems started next. Merchant ships that used human trade routes found the routes closed. Human trading posts in neutral space shut down overnight. Deliveries were delayed. Prices started rising. Some planets complained about shortages of food and supplies. Then came the military issues. Pirates attacked a cargo convoy near the border. Usually, Captain Minji's fleet would respond within an hour. But the human ships were gone. The Council's own defense force took 6 hours to arrive. By then, the pirates had destroyed 3 ships and stolen their cargo. More attacks followed. The pirates had noticed the absence of human patrols. They were testing the Council's defenses and finding them weak. Without human military coordination, response times were slow and ineffective. Vexthar called an emergency council session. All the delegates gathered in the chamber. The mood was tense. Everyone had heard about the problems by now. We need to address the human situation, one delegate said. Our hospital is struggling. Our trade routes are disrupted. Our borders are vulnerable. Another delegate agreed. We should contact Earth immediately. Offer them better terms. Convince them to return. But a Velkari elder spoke up. We should not beg. Humans are a junior species. They should be grateful we allowed them into the council at all. Let them come crawling back on their own. Vexthar decided on a middle approach. He sent a formal message to Earth. It was carefully worded, not quite an apology, not quite a request. Just a polite inquiry asking why humans had left and whether they might reconsider. The response came 2 days later. It was brief and professional. Humanity has chosen to pursue independent development. We wish the Council well in its future endeavors. We have no plans to return. Thank you for your understanding, that was all. No explanation. No negotiation, no anger. Just a polite goodbye. The finality of it was shocking. Kova read the message and felt a deep sadness. The humans were not coming back. The Council had lost them forever. And the consequences were only beginning. That night, Kova stayed late in the engineering bay. They were trying to understand the gate network code. It was incredibly complex. Human engineers had written comments in the code explaining how things worked. But even with these notes, it was hard to follow. Around midnight, Kova found something alarming. A major gate hub was showing critical errors. If the errors continued, the hub would fail completely within 3 days. When a hub failed, all the gates connected to it would stop working. 3 entire star systems would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Kova ran simulations trying to fix the problem. Nothing worked. They tried calling other engineers for help. No one understood the system well enough. They searched the databases for human documentation. Most of it had been removed. As the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Kova sat alone in the dark room. On the screen in front of them, red warning messages blinked. 72 hours until failure. 72 hours until 3 star systems were isolated. 72 hours until trillions of credits were lost, and no one knew how to stop it. Kova looked at the empty desk where a human engineer used to sit. The desk was clean and bare now. The human who worked there had maintained this exact gate hub. They would have known what to do. They would have fixed this in minutes, but that human was gone. They were all gone. And the council was only now beginning to understand what that meant. Kova sent an urgent report to Vexithar, explaining the situation. Then they went back to work, trying desperately to find a solution they knew did not exist. The countdown continued. 71 hours, 70 hours, 69 hours. The gate hub was going to fail, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. The gate hub failed exactly when Kova predicted. One moment it was there, connecting 3 star systems to the rest of the galaxy. The next moment, nothing. The connection just died. 3 star systems, 14 planets. Home to trillions of people, all suddenly cut off. Ships that were in transit when the gate failed were trapped in dimensional space. It took 3 days to find them and pull them back to normal space. 2 ships were lost completely along with everyone aboard. 147 people dead. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some blamed the engineers. Others blamed the humans for sabotaging the system before they left. Everyone blamed someone. Vexthar tried to maintain order, but even he looked shaken. This was not a minor problem. This was a catastrophe. Kova stood before the council and explained what had happened. The gate hub was built on human technology. When the humans left, they had removed key components. The system could not handle the load without those improvements. It was like removing the foundation from a building and expecting the walls to stand. "Can you fix it?" a delegate demanded. Kova hesitated. She wanted to say yes, but she had spent days trying and she was not even close to a solution. "I do not know," she admitted. The human engineer who built this system worked on it for 20 years. He understood it completely. "I have been studying his work for 2 years and I only understand a small part of it." The chamber fell silent. This was not the answer they wanted, but worse news was coming. On the border worlds, a war had broken out. 2 species who had been rivals for centuries saw the weakness in council defenses and decided to settle old grudges. Before, Captain Minji's fleet would have been there within hours. The human peacekeepers were efficient and fair. Both sides respected them, even when they did not like their decisions. Now the council's military response was slow and confused. By the time ships arrived, thousands were already dead. The fighting spread to 3 planets. Refugee ships fled toward council space, overwhelming the stations that received them. At the hospital, conditions went from bad to terrible. The facility was designed to handle 5,000 patients. Now they had 12,000. The doctors worked until they collapsed from exhaustion. The equipment kept breaking down. Supplies ran low, and then the plague arrived. It started on 1 refugee ship. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it had spread to 3 planets. The disease was deadly, killing 1 in 3 people who caught it. The council had a vaccine. Dr. Hyun's team had developed it 5 years ago. But the vaccine was difficult to make. It required special equipment and precise procedures. Dr. Hyun had set up the production facilities and trained the staff. Without her, production dropped by 80%. The remaining staff tried their best, but they made mistakes. Entire batches had to be thrown away because they were contaminated or improperly mixed. Millions needed the vaccine. Hundreds of thousands could be produced. People started dying in numbers that made the war casualties seem small. The council's economy was collapsing. With the gate network unreliable, trade slowed to a crawl. Cargo that used to move between systems in days now took months, if it moved at all. Companies went bankrupt. Unemployment soared. Food shortages appeared on dozens of worlds. These planets depended on imports from agricultural systems. Without reliable shipping, the food just sat in warehouses while people went hungry. Riots broke out. Governments fell. The carefully maintained peace that the council had overseen for centuries was crumbling. Kova worked day and night, trying to fix the gate network. She recruited the best engineers from across council space. Together they studied the human designs, trying to understand them. What they discovered shocked them all. Every major improvement to the gate network in the past 50 years had come from humans. The efficiency upgrades, the safety systems, the traffic management algorithms, all human work. The same was true for dozens of other systems: power generation, water purification, air recycling, communication networks. Humans had touched all of it, improved all of it, and now all of it was failing. Kova started digging through the council archives looking for records. She wanted to understand how this had happened. How had humans become so essential without anyone noticing? What she found made her sick. Report after report showed the same pattern. Humans would propose an idea. The council would reject it. Then months later, the same idea would be implemented under a different species name. The credit would go to a Velkari scientist or a Thulian engineer. The human who did the actual work would be listed as an assistant if they were mentioned at all. Promotion records were even worse. Humans were consistently rated as excellent workers. Their performance reviews praised their innovation and dedication. But when it came time for advancement, they were always passed over. Not qualified yet. Need more experience. Perhaps in a few more decades the pattern went back 100 years. Systematic, deliberate. Humans were good enough to do the work, but not good enough to get the credit or the rewards. Kova compiled everything into a report. It took her a week of working through the night, surviving on stimulants and determination. The final document was devastating. Page after page of evidence showing exactly how the council had treated humanity. She requested time to present her findings to the full council. Vexthar tried to refuse, but other delegates overruled him. They needed to understand what was happening. The presentation lasted 6 hours. Kova showed them everything. The stolen credit, the blocked promotions, the dismissive treatment, and then she showed them the cost. The council was losing 15 trillion credits per day due to the human departure. The number was accelerating. Within 6 months, the entire economy would collapse. Within a year, the council might cease to exist entirely. When she finished, the chamber was silent. Some delegates looked ashamed. Others looked angry. A few still looked defiant. Vexthar stood up. His voice was cold. "This is unfortunate," he said, "but the council has faced challenges before. We will rebuild. We will recover, and we will do it without depending on any one species. This is a learning opportunity. We will emerge stronger." He refused to acknowledge that the council had done anything wrong. In his view, this was just bad luck. Poor timing. The humans had happened to leave during a difficult period. But the council's systems and traditions were sound. Kova could not believe what she was hearing. She had just shown them proof. Undeniable evidence. And still Vexthar acted as if the council bore no responsibility. That night, exhausted and discouraged, Kova returned to her small quarters. She found a message waiting. The sender was listed as anonymous, but the routing showed it came from human space. She opened it carefully, expecting anger or mockery. Instead, she found technical documentation, complete plans for stabilizing the gate network, step-by-step instructions, everything she needed. At the bottom was a short message, unsigned. "We do not want you to suffer. We just wanted to be treated as equals. Good luck." Kova sat in the dark, reading through the documentation. The humans had given them a gift. No demands, no conditions. Just help freely offered. She thought about everything she had learned. About how the council had treated humanity for over a century. And about how humanity was responding not with revenge but with mercy. She saved the files and started working immediately. Maybe she could save the gate network after all, but she knew now that some things were beyond saving. The council's pride, its arrogance, its belief in its own superiority, those things were already dead. The council just did not know it yet. 3 months after the humans left, the council received news that made everything worse. 5 more species had formally announced their withdrawal. These were not minor civilizations. These were established members with significant territories and resources. Their departure letters were polite but clear. They were joining the human coalition. Vexthar called another emergency session. This time there was real fear in the chamber. If more species kept leaving, the council would fall apart completely. "Why are they leaving?" a delegate demanded. "What are the humans offering them?" A junior diplomat had actually read the Human Coalition Charter. She stood nervously to explain. Equal representation regardless of species age or size, fair trade agreements with no favoritism, technology sharing based on merit, not politics, democratic voting where every member has equal say. She paused, then added quietly, "It is everything we claim to offer but never actually do." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Many delegates shifted in their seats. They all knew she was right, but nobody wanted to admit it out loud. Vexthar ignored the comment entirely. "We need to take action," he declared. "The humans have stolen our technology. They are using it to lure away our members. This is unacceptable." Kova was in the chamber that day. She stood up before she could stop herself. "Council Prime, with respect, the humans did not steal anything. The technology they are using is technology they developed. We are the ones who stole from them, taking credit for their innovations for over a century." Several delegates gasped. "You did not speak to the Council Prime that way." But Kova had spent too many sleepless nights studying the records. She had seen too much truth to stay silent. Vexthar's face turned dark with anger. "You are out of order. Return to your station and do your job." But Kova was not the only one who had been thinking. Other delegates had seen the evidence she presented. They had watched the systems failing. Some of them were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. A Thulian delegate stood up. "Perhaps we should consider reaching out to the humans properly, not with demands but with an apology. Acknowledge what we did wrong and ask if we can find a better path forward." Vexthar rejected this immediately. "The Council does not apologize. We maintain our dignity. The humans will realize their mistake eventually and return to us." Instead, he proposed something else. A covert operation. They would send intelligence agents into human space to study their technology, to learn their methods, to take what they needed. The vote was close, but it passed. Kova voted against it. So did several others. But it was not enough. The operation was launched 2 weeks later. A team of the Council's best intelligence officers infiltrated human space. They had false identities and sophisticated equipment. They were confident they could succeed. They were caught within 48 hours. The humans did not imprison them. They did not harm them. They simply deported them back to Council space with all their equipment wiped clean and a formal diplomatic protest. The message from Ambassador Jiho was brief and professional. The human coalition considered the matter closed, but any future attempts at espionage would result in severed diplomatic relations. The embarrassment was total. News of the failed operation spread quickly. Some species laughed at the Council's desperation. Others shook their heads in disappointment. Meanwhile, the crises kept growing. Half the gate network was now offline. The parts that still worked were unreliable. Ships went missing. Cargo disappeared. Travel times that used to be measured in days were now measured in months. The wars on the border had spread to 6 different conflicts. The Council military was overwhelmed. They begged for reinforcements, but there were no reinforcements to send. The plague had killed 8 million people. Vaccine production was still failing. Dr. Hyun's carefully designed processes were too complex for the remaining staff to manage properly. The economy was in free fall. Unemployment reached 40% in some systems. Hunger and poverty spread like their own kind of plague. The Council station itself was falling apart. Life support systems failed in entire sections. Power outages were common. The grand symbol of galactic unity was becoming a barely functional shell. Many delegates stopped coming to the station entirely. They returned to their homeworlds, claiming they could be more effective there. Everyone knew the real reason. The Council was dying and nobody wanted to be there when it finally collapsed. Kova stayed. She worked 20-hour days, trying to keep essential systems running. The human documentation had helped with the gates, but there was only so much one engineer could do. She assembled a team of engineers from different species. Together, they tried to rebuild what was falling apart. It was exhausting work with little progress. One evening, she was reviewing data when she noticed something. The human coalition was thriving. Their economy was growing. Their technology was advancing. Species that joined them reported better standards of living within months. It was not just because humans were good at technology. It was because they shared everything equally. When one species made a breakthrough, every member benefited. When one system needed help, everyone contributed. The contrast with the Council could not be more clear. Here, species hoarded advantages. They competed instead of cooperating. They maintained hierarchies that benefited the old powers at the expense of newer members. Kova realized something that should have been obvious from the start. The humans had not broken the Council. The Council had broken itself long ago. The humans had just been the foundation holding everything together. When they left, the rot that had always been there became visible. A vote of no confidence was called against Vexthar. It had been building for weeks. More and more delegates were angry about his refusal to acknowledge reality. The vote was not even close. Vexthar was removed from power with 70% voting against him. His political career, which had spanned decades, ended in humiliation. The council needed new leadership. Someone who understood what had gone wrong. Someone who might be able to fix it if fixing was even possible. To Kova's shock, they chose her. She tried to refuse. She was too young, too inexperienced. Her species was small and unimportant in council politics, but that was exactly why they wanted her. She represented change. She had been willing to speak truth when others stayed silent. She had tried to warn them before things got this bad. Kova accepted, knowing she was probably accepting an impossible task. Her first act as Council Prime was to release all the historical records she had compiled. Everything. The complete truth about how the Council had treated humanity. The reaction was explosive. Some species were outraged that she would expose the Council's failures so publicly, but many more were relieved that someone was finally being honest. Her second act was more difficult. She drafted a formal apology to humanity. Not a request for help, not a negotiation. Just an acknowledgement that the Council had been wrong. It took 3 days to write. Every word had to be perfect. This was unprecedented in Council history. They had never admitted fault before. When it was done, Kova sent it to Ambassador Jiho personally. Then she waited. The response took 5 days. When it came, Kova read it alone in her office. Jiho thanked her for the apology. He acknowledged that it took courage to admit mistakes, but humanity would not be returning to the Council. Too much had happened. The relationship was fundamentally broken. However, he made an offer. The human coalition was willing to establish a new relationship with the Council. Trade agreements, technology sharing, mutual defense, all on the table, but it would be between equals. No hierarchy, no superior species, true partnership or nothing at all. Kova read the message 3 times. This was their chance. Maybe their only chance. She called a council session to discuss the offer. The debate would be fierce. Many species would resist accepting humans as equals. Pride died hard. But maybe, just maybe, they could build something better from the ruins. 1 year after the humans left, a new station floated in neutral space between Council territory and human coalition space. It was smaller than the old Council station, but newer, built together by both groups as a symbol of what might be possible. The Galactic Partnership Summit was about to begin. Kova stood at a viewing window watching ships arrive. Council vessels on one side, human coalition ships on the other. For the first time in a year, they would meet as equals. She was nervous. The past year had been the hardest of her life. The Council had shrunk to 23 members. 17 species had left to join the human coalition. Others had chosen to remain independent of both groups. The Council that remained was different. Humbled, struggling but slowly learning. They had used the documentation the humans provided to stabilize the gate network. It was not as good as before, but it worked. They had reformed their procedures. Merit-based advancement now. Equal representation in decision-making. The old hierarchies had been dismantled, though not without fierce resistance. Some species, like the Velkari, still refused to accept the changes. They had withdrawn into isolation, bitter and proud. Kova felt sorry for them. Pride was expensive. A door opened behind her. Her assistant entered. The human delegation has arrived. Council Prime. Ambassador Jiho requests a private meeting before the formal sessions begin. Kova nodded and followed her assistant to a small conference room. She had never met Jiho in person before. All their communication had been through messages and video calls. When she entered, he stood. He was older than she expected, with gray in his hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. But when he smiled, it was genuine. Council Prime Kova, he said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. It is good to finally meet you. She took his hand, mimicking the gesture. Human customs were becoming more common across the galaxy now. Ambassador Jiho, thank you for coming. They sat across from each other. For a moment, neither spoke. I want you to know, Kova said finally, that I understand why you left. What we did to your people for over a century was wrong. Systematically, deliberately wrong. No apology can fix that. Jiho nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that, and for having the courage to expose the truth. That could not have been easy. It was necessary, Kova said. We had to face what we had done. Some of my people still hate me for it. They say I shamed the council. You saved it, Jiho replied. What was left to save anyway? The old council was dying long before we left. It was built on foundations of arrogance and exploitation. That kind of structure always collapses eventually. He leaned forward. We did not leave to punish you. We left because we refused to keep accepting second-class status. Every species deserves respect. When we could not find that in the council, we built it elsewhere. I know, Kova said. I have studied your coalition charter. It is everything the council should have been. Over the next 3 weeks, delegates from both groups worked together. The negotiations were difficult. Old prejudices did not die easily. Some council species still struggled with treating humans as equals. But progress happened. Slowly, carefully. They established trade agreements that benefited both sides fairly. Technology sharing programs with proper credit and compensation. Mutual defense pacts that did not favor either group. A joint committee was formed with equal representation. Any decisions affecting both groups required approval from both sides. No hierarchy, no superior species, true partnership. During one session, Captain Minji gave a speech that became famous. She was a fleet admiral now, commanding the coalition's military forces. Her words were direct and powerful. We did not leave because we wanted revenge. We left because we refused to be treated as less than we were. Every species in this galaxy deserves respect and recognition. When we could not find that in the old council, we created it ourselves. Now we offer partnership to anyone who wants it, but we will never again accept being taken for granted. The room was silent when she finished. Her message was clear. Humans were willing to work together, but the old ways were dead forever. Dr. Hyun surprised everyone by proposing a joint medical initiative. She would work with council doctors to finally solve the plague that had killed so many. Human and council researchers together, sharing everything equally. The project succeeded beyond all expectations. Within 6 months, they had not only improved the original vaccine but developed treatments for 3 other diseases. When they published their results, both organizations shared credit equally. Both praised each other's contributions publicly. It was such a simple thing, giving credit where credit was due, but for the council, it was revolutionary. Engineer Do-hyun returned to council space for the first time in over a year. He came with Kova's engineering team to unveil something new, a next-generation gate network design that he had developed together with council engineers. It was superior to the old system in every way, more efficient, more reliable, safer, and it was truly collaborative. You could see the contributions from both human and non-human engineers in every part of the design. Both the council and the coalition agreed to implement it. For the first time in over a year, the galaxy was connected again. Ships could travel freely. Trade resumed. Communication networks came back online. The project was co-branded. Equal recognition for everyone who contributed. It became a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Near the end of the summit, something unexpected happened. A Velkari delegation requested to speak. They were young members of their species, representing a new generation. Their leader stood before the assembly, clearly uncomfortable. The Velkari had always been proud. This was difficult for them. On behalf of the Velkari people, he began, his voice tight. We acknowledge the role our species played in the mistreatment of humanity. For generations, we dismissed your contributions. We took credit for your work. We maintained systems that kept you in subordinate positions. He paused, then continued. We were wrong. This is difficult for us to say, but it is true. We apologize. Not because we want something from you, but because it is what we should have done a long time ago. The room was completely silent. Everyone knew how much this cost the Velkari. Ambassador Jiho stood and walked to the Velkari delegate. He extended his hand. Apology accepted, he said simply. Growth requires acknowledging our mistakes. All of us have made them. What matters is what we do next. On the final day of the summit, Kova and Jiho stood together watching the dedication ceremony for the new partnership station. Species from both groups mingled freely. Engineers compared notes. Diplomats made plans. Military officers discussed joint exercises. It was not perfect. There were still tensions, still disagreements, still old prejudices that surfaced sometimes. But it was better, so much better. Do you think it will last? Kova asked quietly. Jiho considered the question. I think it has a chance. Because this time we built it on honest foundations. No lies, no exploitation. Just mutual respect and genuine partnership. He smiled. We did not want revenge. We did not want to see you fail. We just wanted to be treated as equals. When that was not possible in the old council, we found others who would. The door was always open for you to walk through it with us. Some of you eventually did, and to those who did we say welcome. Let us build something better together. 5 years later, a young historian sat in a library, writing about what people were now calling the quiet departure. She had interviewed hundreds of people, read thousands of documents, studied the rise and fall of the old council and the birth of the new partnerships. Her conclusion was simple, but profound. Humanity did not destroy the Galactic Council. They simply refused to continue holding it up while being treated as inferior. The council collapsed because it was built on foundations of disrespect and exploitation. When those being exploited left, the structure fell. She wrote about the cost of taking people for granted, about how essential contributions only become visible when they are gone, about the danger of building systems on hierarchy instead of partnership. But she also wrote about hope, about how crisis can force necessary change, about how some species learned from their mistakes and built something better from the ruins. She included a quote from Ambassador Jiho that had become famous across the galaxy. The real lesson is not about humanity's strength. It is about the value of genuine equality. When one group in any partnership is consistently dismissed, eventually they will stop partnering. And if they were the foundation you did not realize you were standing on, you will fall. Not because they wanted you to fail, but because they refused to carry weight they were never thanked for carrying. The historian closed her work with a final observation. The humans taught the galaxy something important. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away, not with anger or violence, but with dignity and purpose. And sometimes, if you are willing to admit your mistakes and truly change, those who left might be willing to build something new with you. Not the same as before. Something better. The galaxy was still learning that lesson, but slowly, surely it was sinking in.